Boker Or, Daf Yomi Mesech Babata, Daf Tzadik Daled Amud Aleph. We're talking about 94a1. We're just going to start on the 93b. If you remember, we talked about the Mishnah, where the Mishnah was that if you're going to come and you're going to sell certain fruits, so therefore you're going to accept upon yourself a certain amount of solet for the fruits. Doesn't matter which the amount. So therefore, obviously, it's going to be, sometimes it's going to be 10%, right? It all depends on what you're buying exactly. So if you remember, we said it was going to be a rova, which is 1/24th for the se'ah, right? And for tenim, if it's going to be, right, the concept of tinofet, this is going to be for every single one. That's going to be perot, different grains. If it's going to be tenim, it's going to be, right, it's going to be 10 for every 100. So that's 1/10. Martev shel yain, the same thing. One of every, right, it's going to be 1/10. And the same thing for kankanin. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara. Tane, we learned, right, in a braita. Tane Rav Katina. Rav Katina came and he taught in the Mishnah, Rova kitnit lese'ah. What does that mean exactly? He comes and he says he was going to talk about 1%, right, which is going to be mixed up. So he comes and he says like this. He says, "Ve'afrurit lo." Are you going to tell me afrurit? Right? He didn't have. Ve'amar Rabba Barachia katufsa mishme deraba haborer seror migorno shel chavero. If somebody's going to come and he's going to separate a tzror, okay, which is basically a gush of a far or even, migorno shel chavero, from the Goren of the Chaver, noten lo deme chitin. He's going to give him deme chitin. So he has to give him the money of chita. Chitnit is going to be rova frurit, pachot merova. So it's going to be 1/4 of a kav for seah, and afrurit is going to be less than 1/4 of a kav for seah. So again, everything depends on what item you're talking about. The afrurit rova lo, says the Gemara, if you're going to have a tevuah, and you're going to have a fruit and the shiur of rova kav leseah, right? We're going to say that you're not allowed to accept anything. Well, you don't accept anything. But Tanya, we learned in a braita, amoche pero lechavero, right? Chitin mikabel lav rova kitnit leseah, seorim mikabel lav rova nishovet leseah. Okay, so one more time. When we're talking about chitin, it's 1/4 of kitnit for a seah. If it's going to be seorim, it's a rova of a kash, rova kav of kash for seah. Adashim mikabel rova of fruit leseah. Are we not talking about also the same thing that the fruit you're going to also have the exact same thing? So says the Gemara, Shane Adashim, it's different Adashim, Temi Aker Akre Lehu, that they're going to be Oker Mina Adama, right, with the Shorashim, and therefore you're also going to have a far. Meaning you can't just come stam and say that there's always going to be a far. No. Here, the Adashim, since you're taking it from the ground, so it's going to come with a far. So therefore you have to accept upon yourself also the far that comes with it. He says what? Chitiv v'seorim, you don't take it from the ground? What's going on? So tivshe mina chitiv v'seorim daflu mikabel, right? That you don't accept any type of afrurit with chitiv v'seorim, which means you could take other refuse, other psolet with chitiv v'seorim, aval lo afrurit, right? Not the afar. So says the Gemara, no. Leolam chitiv v'seoreh gam mikabel afrurit, because it's the same svara. At the end of the day, if it's coming from the ground, whenever you take things from the ground, what happens, right? It comes up with it. I remember the olden days, you used to buy potatoes. They were always dirty. There was always, you understand? It was always dirty. Nowadays, you already buy them in mamash, or they're like clean, basically. You understand? Like mamash, you understand? That's just the way that it is. Yeah? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he says like this. He says, "Adashim etzichale," but the chidush is by Adashim. The salka that means I would have thought to say, "Kevan demiaker akrelu," since they're going to uproot it. Yoter mirova namin lekabel. You should get even more than a rova of a kav of a far. Kamash malan that it's going to be a maximum of a rova of a kav. Okay. Of course. No, rova of a kav, right? According to what we said yesterday, every single one, whether it's going to be 1/10 or 1/24th. Yeah, Amar Ravuna comes and he says as follows. Okay, 1/10 of the measure, 1/24th. Right? Doesn't matter what we're talking about. It could be kilos, it could be pounds. There, it was talking about the seim, which was a certain measure, but it doesn't matter. It's the concept. The concept is you accept 10%, right? You accept 24%. You accept whatever with the 1/24th. Yeah, fine. Amar Ravuna. What? Ravuna says. Ravuna comes and he says. If a person is going to come and he's going to be minapeh the perot, which he's going to come and he's going to acquire, okay? And what happens is there's more than a shiur. So menapet kulo, he takes off all the psolim, meaning like this. Let's say the guy was a swindler. Yeah, he's a trickster. No, not the exact opposite. One more time. You come and you receive the merchandise. How much were you supposed to have of a fruit? The rova kav. Okay, fine. Let's just pretend. I'm going to say 10%. You come, you look at it, and you're thinking to yourself, no. There's much more than that. There's probably 15%. So you start checking, and there's 15%, meaning there's more than the 10% that you're allowed to receive. Now you could take off all the psolet. Because basically it's a knas, it's like a penalty, right? That since you went overboard, now what happens is now you cannot even take off that. Meaning beforehand, it was permitted for me to give you 10% garbage. Now the second that you come and you went overboard, not even 1% garbage. Yeah, it sounds very, very familiar. You understand, right? Meaning that sometimes what? Yeah. Okay, fine. He says, Amar Rav Huna, right? Sometimes we levater, but the second that they go over, gamarnu. So Amar Rav Huna comes and he says, Im ba lenapot menapet kulo. So Amri le dina ve'amri le knas. Some people say that's the din, but some people say no, it's a knas. Why is it a knas? You went and you wanted to give it to him. You're gonna, what goes around comes around. You wanted to come and kilu, give him a little bit too much. No problem. Now that's it. Now you're gonna have to give him 100% clean. Yeah, 100% neto. Amri ladina. Some people say it's the din. Why? Man di'ayiv zuze apere shapir yayiv. He says when he's giving the zuz, and when he's paying the money, he's showing the money for what? For the good fruits. The rova lo tarachinish. But if it's going to be a rova, nobody's going to be tarach, and nobody's going to come. But right? He says you tell me rova tarachinish. But more than rova, people are going to be tarach. Kevin the tarach bekule. Once a person's going to be do the tircha, he's going to be tircha and everything. Meaning usually less than that, okay, so he's going to be mater. But once he's already doing the tircha, that's it. He's just going to finish the entire thing. Okay? But some people say it's a knas. Rova is shchiach. It's common. Meaning not that the person will come and work for the less than the rova. It's common that there's going to be psolet of a, he says more than the rova, it's not going to be shchiach. Ve'ihu de'ariv, but he's the one that's doing it. Ve'kevan de'ariv, and since, right, we're choshed that he was the one that mixed it together, Hansu Rabbanan bekule. They gave him a knas. You understand? Yeah. What does that mean? People that, sometimes we give a knas to people. You understand? Sometimes we give a knas to people. You have to understand that's the concept of a knas. So now he says like this. He says, okay, there's going to be a siman over here, a mnemonic. Remember that these mnemonics, but they're in brackets, so we're not going to do it. Right? It says like this. Meitvei. We're going to ask the following question. This is from a Mishnah in Kilaim. Kol se'ah sheyesh ba rova mimin acher yema'et. Any type of a se'ah, of a zera, that has mixed into it a rova of a kav, of another type of a species, yema'et. Just take it out, right? Until it's going to be less than a rova. Yeah? It's going to be less than a rova. So Savrua, they thought, right, the rova de kilaim kyoter mi rova dacha. We're talking about the rova of the kilaim is going to be more than the rova of here. The katani mai. So just take off a little bit. That's it. Yeah, all you have to do is take off a little bit. So it says the Gemara, no. Rova de kilaim ki rova dacha dami. It's the exact same thing. Which means, so says the Gemara, yachiv so amay yemayet. Why are you allowed to be mamayet? So says the Gemara, mishum chumra de kilaim. Because the chumra of kilaim, we wanted to make sure that you're going to make even less. Meaning, even though we just said that if it's going to be more than the appropriate measurement, now that's it. Here, right, it's going to be a different halacha. He comes and he says like this. It says, right, we were just saying, if so. Okay, it's 94b. To be or not to be. Yeah, he says, Eima Seifa, let's see the Seifa. The Seifa says, Rabbi Yosef Omer, Rabbi Yosef says, Yavor. Yavor means to yivror. Right, Yavor, right, which means take out all the zera. If you're going to tell me now more than a reva tinofet is like that, so then keep back on that's a machloket. We don't make a knas of eter by isur, meaning we're not going to come and make a knas, right, for the zurea lechayev oto lasid et kol mutar, right, only the little bit. Rabbi Yossi Savar consider we do make a knas. If you're going to tell me it's like the rova, amayavor, why are you allowed to come and just take it out? Right, you have to take everything out then. So says the Gemara, you have to take everything out because that looks like it's like you're doing kilaim, meaning we don't want you to be mekayem kilaim bechavana, right? It looks like you're doing it bechavana, obviously. So therefore, that's why we come and we say that you have to take out everything, even though usually, again, if it's going to be just to be memayet, here we're talking about moving off, right, the entire thing. Okay, Tashima, you've got another question now. Again, this is stira to Rav Huna from our Mishnah. It says Shnaim shivkidu etzel echad. Two people come to one person. So imagine, right? You've got Mordechai over there, yeah, and you've got Ronen. They come and they're mafkid etzel John Paul. Shnaim shivkidu etzel echad. Zemanav zematayim. One of them gives him 100. One of them gives him 200. Why, right? Each one come and they say the 200 is theirs. Yeah. So he's asking his wife. Yeah, is the 200 his or his not? So each one, what is he going to do? He's going to have 100 to noten mana lekol echad. Yeah, 100 to each one. Vyashar, kama? Yeah, right? 100. So he says, Vyashar, yemem munaf. Yeah, ad shiavo Eliyahu. The other 100, you're going to leave it until Eliyahu Navi comes. Right? Why? Because we don't know. You're saying it's yeah, 100%. You're right. Because then he doesn't lose anything. You're right. He doesn't lose anything. Incredible. You are correct. Fine. So he says, Hach yashta. Can you compare both cases? He says, Hatam over there, Vadai mane lemor umane lemor. It's a little bit different. For sure, each person has, right? He comes and he says, each one we're talking about is going to be on the name. Yeah, he comes and says this. He says, right? He says, right? We're talking about, for sure, we're talking about a maneh, right? What does that mean exactly? Yeah, he comes and he says, right, like this. There's the Gemara. Yeah, so now he comes and he says this. He says, how could you compare both cases? He says, here you have each one for sure has a maneh. Meaning both of them, right? Also Ronen and also Mordechai, they gave a maneh. So therefore he comes and he says, but in our case, where basically you have more psolet, more refuse than what you're supposed to. Maybe he came and he did the entire thing. Maybe he mixed up the entire thing. Right? He was the one that came. He came and he started mixing everything together. Yeah? You know how it is. Sometimes people they do the balagan and then they put it in there. Right? So he says, Tashema, we're gonna try to bring another proof from the Seifa. Amar Rabbi Yosef, says Rabbi Yosef, Im ken so, ma'ifsi the Ramai. The Ramai! You have a Ramai here. What's he losing out? He's not losing anything. So what are you gonna do? Like what John Paul said. What the doctor said. Everything from 1 to 300. Nada, you don't give nothing back. Why? Because then the Ramai he's not gonna very good. So then he's gonna regret it. He's gonna admit to his fault. Right? Because if not, then he just lost his $100. Right? He wanted the other guy to lose. Right? Tamun Avshim Plishtim. Right? But at the end, he even lost out even more. Yeah, Mama, she lost everything. So says the Gemara, can you compare both cases? Hatam, Vadai, right? He says, Vadai Ika Ramai. Over there, for sure, there's a Ramai. Hacha, Miyema Daru Ve'arif. He says, are you going to tell me that he's going to mix it together? So Tashema, meaning that there, for sure, there's Ramai. But both of them are coming to John Paul and saying, I gave you the 200. And we know there was only one that gave him 200. So for sure, there's a Ramai. Here, we never know anything. So Tashema, Shtar Sheish Bo Rebit. What happens if you have a shtar that has rebit written on it? And you have to pay rebit. Konsinoto. You give the guy a knas. Ve'eno gove lo takerem lo rebit. According to Rabbi Meir, wallah, he mamash lost everything. He lost everything. What does that mean? He doesn't even collect the principal. Not even the principal. Mamash, he was mevateres on his money. So says the Gemara, Hach Yasha, can you compare both cases? Hata mishak tiva udavi lashuma. He says from the time that he was writing the document, right, it was as if to say that he put the rebit on the love, and therefore he made a knas because for sure he was over on the yisur of rebit. Meaning at the time when this was being done, which is the time of the writing of the document, he's already over on the yisur. Hacha over here, whoever said that he actually did an yisur. Maybe that was the amount. That was there. It was already the amount of a far. He didn't do an isur. In the case of the rebit, for sure he did an isur. He wrote a document. I'm lending you money and I'm charging you 5%, whatever it is, 10%. Yeah, right? It depends who's in the government. Yeah, it depends. So you're gonna. But whoever said that you did an avirah here, you didn't do an avirah. Maybe there was already the psola there. So Tashema, yeah, Tashema. But even if it's over, he didn't do anything. Tashema, we're going to try to bring now another proof from the Seifa. What is the Seifa? Ahamim omerim. Gove et hakerem ve'eno gove et harebit. you're going to collect the keren, but you do not go with the rebit. You only collect the principal, not the rebit. So can you compare both cases? Hatam vadai karna de terahu. The keren was heter. Me right? Me emar de kule lo aru ve'arif. But here, whoever told you that he didn't mix everything, meaning maybe he did everything. You have no idea. We don't know how much. If he did put how much, we have no idea. Maybe he put everything. So tashema, meaning over there, 100% net of the keren was mutar. It was only the rebit which is asur. Here, maybe all the psolet was asur. Not only the meaning there was no heter at all, because maybe Bemet he was the one that came and put all the psolet there. We don't know. So Tashema, we're going to try to bring another proof now. Tani Ravim bar Rav Nachman. He says, "Lo et hamocher bilvad u'machzir, lo et hamotar bilvad u'machzir, ela machzir lo kol harevaim kulan." Not only is it going to be the motar that he's giving back, but he's going to give back also all the revaim kulan, everything. Almas, you see from here, eicha debaya adure kula me'ader. That when a person needs to be machzir chelek from the mekach, he has to give back everything, the entire thing, right, whatsoever. Okay, and therefore, again, so the Gemara is going to ask, can you compare both cases? He says, Tzadikei Amud from the top, Hatam, hen chaserin yatira maleh. He says, listen, bet kul farim v'cholecha, chaserim yatira, meaning more or less. Miu ravia lo chashi, but we're not talking about the ravia, because it's like that. Yeter men ravia chashi, but if it's going to be more than a ravia, it is chashiv. Right? Why? Because it's already a big amount. The hadra, and therefore it's going to retract. And then tomorrow, Bezat Hashem, we continue.